This your girl, Empress Goddess. Welcome to Empress Goddess Presents Gnostic Revelation.
I'm William Henry, and this is Ascension Keepers. After the genocide of the Essenes in 68 AD, the 1st to 4th centuries AD saw the Essene Ascension teachings go underground and reform as Gnostic. This religion was so named because it depended upon personal spiritual revelation, the gnosis or knowledge of God. Gnosis simply means knowledge, especially of divine mysteries, pointing to the mystical desire of the Gnostics to expand their consciousness beyond ordinary perception and to see beyond the veil. This enables access to the divine realm. And according to some scholars, the mystical path by which the Gnostics attained illumination is mapped and teachable. This means anyone can follow this path. Whereas in the past, ascending to God's throne and seeing his face was prohibited, and in my humble opinion, thanks to the Essenes, now a shift had happened. The Gnostics, practicing what they called Hekalat and Merkabah teachings, now began to emphasize the practice of ascension and seeing God. Through the choices one makes in their life, their spiritual practices, mystical techniques, personal deeds, and inner awareness, one can initiate an encounter with an angel and journey to heaven. We can get in our boat and voyage out of this world to the Merkabah, the chamber of God, the heaven of heavens, said the Gnostics. In preparation for this ascension, the Gnostics embarked on a process of self-purification aimed at perfecting oneself and gaining the higher spiritual vibrations of purity, holiness, wholeness, and righteousness. Practices like yoga, fasts, diets, cleansing rituals, singing songs, chanting of hymns, prayers, incantations, and repeating the divine name, active visualization, meditation, were all used to expand the perception of the Gnostic adept. The effect of these practices included ecstatic trance, a sense of the soul, deep meditation, dream vision, hallucination, crossing into other dimensions, and ultimately, the dissolution of the human into light. All of the Gnostic spiritual practices were aimed at preparing the mystic to enter the celestial chamber of God or the Merkabah throne and an encounter with the Mighty One. After passing through 7 heavens, the mystic must penetrate the 7 resplendent palaces of the 7th heaven itself before arriving at the throne of glory, said Ezekiel. And once there, the traveler encounters God on his throne. The visionary was taught to expect God to be wearing a garment of light. The vision of it includes a mystical experience that transforms the body of the visionary into light. The Gnostics believed in a divine spark in man, deriving from the eternal divine realm, fallen into this world of matter and fate, and needing to be awakened by a divine counterpart. They upheld the Serpent of Eden as a savior figure who sought to provide humanity with key knowledge to awaken. As may be expected, the traditional church fathers saw Gnosticism as an anti-Christian heresy. Simply put, however, Gnosticism is the earliest form of Christianity. The primitive Christiani, the so-called heretics who preceded the historic Christians, were all Gnostics. It was Roman Catholicism that labeled them heretics in an effort to consolidate its growing power. In 1945, the Gnostic Gospels were discovered in Nag Hammadi, Egypt. These astonishing manuscripts contain the secret teachings of Jesus and the earliest Christians. Whereas Orthodox forms of Christianity found their dogmas and doctrines almost exclusively upon the outer teachings Jesus gave during his brief earthly life and mission, Gnostic Christianity focuses primarily upon the inner and secret teachings Jesus gave after the resurrection. That is, Jesus appears to the disciples in his light body form after his ascension. The Gnostics thought of themselves as the true interpreters of these secret teachings of Jesus. The Nag Hammadi texts, again discovered in Egypt in 1945, are Coptic, meaning they are Egyptian Christian examples of these texts. Until 1945, most of what we know about the Gnostics came from they who persecuted them. The Gnostics were condemned as heretics by the bishops of the early Christian church because they would not accept the canon of the New Testament or the apostolic creed or the authority of the new church. But now, with the discovery of the Nag Hammadi texts, we learn who the Gnostics truly were in their own words. Among several highly utilized but previously unknown Gnostic texts was the Gospel of Thomas, which contained 114 sayings attributed to Jesus. Scholars believe it was written during the second half of the 1st century AD. And it's claimed in the Gospel of Thomas that the sayings contained within this gospel contain the secret of salvation. Saying 1 says, "Whoever finds the interpretation of the sayings will not experience death." The Gospel of Thomas begins with the premise that our individual spirits once lived in the all, the spiritual universe of divine beings. Then, through some primeval catastrophe, the fall of humanity, some human spirits became imprisoned in flesh and blood human bodies and became trapped in the material world, unaware or blind to their true source. But Jesus comes along and saves them by revealing to them the truth of who they are, divine light beings who belong to another world. This realization frees them from the garments of their material bodies and puts them on the way to acquiring their robe of light. The doctrine of the soul's ascent through the heavenly spheres was a key teaching of Gnosticism. The ascension to heaven was equivalent to a spiritual resurrection, and in the fulfillment of the Essenes mission, Jesus cleared the way.
I'm doing well, baby.
In the Gnostic ascension teachings, strange beings called archons
Kind of cool
barred the way to
down
the
here in
seven
Georgia.
heavens, and some maintain the archons sought to take human souls. But we don't worry about them because the Gnostics had a remedy or a fix. We could perfect ourselves and put on a garment of perfect light. In the Gospel of Philip, a 2nd century Gnostic work, transformation through gnosis not only allowed the ascent of the soul, but it also made us invisible to the archons, who some believe are actually extraterrestrial beings. Philip says that not only will they be unable to detain the perfect man, but the archons will not be able to see him, for if they see him, they will detain him. There is no other way for a person to acquire this quality except by putting on the perfect light and he too becoming a perfect light. The mysteries of exactly how to become a perfect light being form the backbone of the Essene revelation that was adopted into the Gnostic religion, especially a branch of it called Manichaeism. Most people may have never heard of Manichaeism or its founder, Mani, a Babylonian prophet who has been called the last Gnostic. However, this secret society of Gnostics were fundamentally Christians. Manichaeism fused early Christianity and Gnosticism and spread from Iran to Egypt, Iraq, and throughout the Middle East. This Chinese painting depicts Jesus as a Manichaean prophet. The figure can be identified as a representation of Christ by the small gold.
To show y'all a picture here. I got trying to charge it up here.
That sits on the red lotus pedestal in his left hand. This Chinese painting depicts Manichaean cosmogony with the realm of light at the top. A number of Manichaean hymns are addressed not to the historical Jesus called Jesus the Messiah,
to bring that fire
but
to
to
y'all.
the
A lot of
light
people don't appreciate
messenger
it though.
Jesus, referred to as Jesus the Splendor, a magnificent shining being who displays the robe of light. According to Manichaeism, Jesus the Splendor is sent to awaken Adam and Eve to the source of the spiritual light trapped within their physical bodies. And the aim of the Manichaeans was the attainment of the light body, which they called the beaming garment. This immaterial or flashing light body beamed, meaning it radiated or displayed bursts of light. It came from a light garment that once belonged to Adam, believed the Manichaeans. It was also instrumental in allowing Jesus to be instantaneously transported or beamed through the wormhole or stargate.
You see it got, hold on, I turn off this light so I can see it real good. You see they got them black, don't you? Give me just a second here. I'm kind of tired today. Okay. Now, we're back.
Linking the world of spirit and the material world. Today's imagination is filled with militaristic views of stargate travel where transport is affected by advanced technology. And every day we find we live in a bigger and bigger universe. We find more and more planets every day and new galaxies. New theories on how the universe began come out all the time. Theories on physics are changing.
Really?
We have M theory, string theory.
You don't hardly say nothing though. You just be in the clouds. But I know y'all be watching because I
our
be
sun
feeling
is
you.
even now thought to be a wormhole or a gateway to heaven. Subatomic particles have now been measured going faster than light, which was thought to be impossible, opening the way for time travel or faster than light travel. In this modern context, the revelation of the existence of a secret race or tribe of transformed humans that have followed the way of light, the Essene way of perfection, and achieved the beaming garment should not surprise us. Nor should we be surprised at how advanced these beings could be. A study by Eric Davis for the U.S. Air Force Research Laboratory of Speculative Teleportation Technologies showed that to dematerialize a human...
Shit, I be sometimes I be late night, I be trying to record something, and I go to sleep. I go to sleep when I wake up. I guess y'all be hearing me snoring. But I'm trying to, push these videos through this weekend because on Monday, I'm going back to work for a little while in the evening time.
By heating it up to 1,000,000 times the temperature of the core of the sun,
so I won't be
so that the quarks lose their binding.
I won't be on here like I be on here all the time, all day. I might do 1 or 2 videos in the morning time, and then that'll be about it.
And become massless and can be beamed at the speed of light in the closest physics equivalent to the Star Trek teleportation or beaming scenario, would require the equivalent of 330 megatons of energy. And he says that to meet the information storage and transmission requirements would require concurrent computing capabilities to continue to improve by a factor of 10 to 100 times per decade for 200 to 300 years. This gives us an idea of just how advanced were the ancient perfect avatars who put on the beaming garment and beamed through the wormhole through spiritual rather than technological means. The Gnostics believe that they who wear the light body garment, the beaming garment, constitute a separate race of advanced humanity composed of awakened and enlightened souls from many time periods and geographical locations, including our own, and one can only hope including us. So let's continue exploring the life of Mani, as there is much to learn about him. Mani was born in Persia in April 216 AD. In this depiction of him here, we clearly see that he is believed to have manifested the rainbow light body. Mani's father joined the Alkacites, a white-robed Gnostic sect that appeared around 100 AD in Syria. The Alkacites were founded by Christians who believed their baptisms connected them with Alkasai, meaning the hidden power of God that originated with the Essenes. The Alkacites may have also been called Kathorai, which literally means the pure ones in Greek. This may be the earliest use of the word Cathar, the mysterious French Gnostic group we will discuss later. And as we will see, they too were followers of Mani. At the age of 24, Mani traveled to India, following in the footsteps of the Apostle Thomas, one of the 12 apostles, and for whom we just discussed this Gospel of Thomas. He was most certainly familiar with the story of Thomas, also told in the Gospel of John, most famous in the passage of John 20 through 24 through 29, where the saint doubts the resurrection of Christ, saying, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands, and put my finger where the nails were, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe it." Jesus is in his light body form, and Thomas has to experience it himself in order to believe this. So then Jesus comes to Thomas a week later and invites Thomas to do just that. After Thomas incredulously poked the Lord's wounds, he believed in the resurrection and the light body. Thomas also missed the ascension or assumption of the Virgin Mary, but she appeared to him as an apparition, as a light being, and transmitted to him her holy rope or girdle. Mani surely must have contemplated the ascension mysteries enfolded within these stories. And after his time in India, Mani settled in Iran and began assembling a community of adepts. As I said, the Gnostics were called heretics because they did not subscribe to the church's historical version of the earthly life and death of Jesus. The Gnostics believed instead that Jesus was an instrument of divine power, referred to as the cosmic Christ.
Right.
And Mani learned from the Alkacites, his father's tribe, if you will, that Jesus was a reincarnating prophet called the Illuminator. Some of them saw Jesus, in fact, as a reincarnation of Zarathustra or Zoroaster, the Iranian spiritual adept who taught self-realization somewhere between 2000 and 700 BC. Zoroaster's ministry began when he experienced revelation at age 30. While sitting on the riverbank, he saw a shining being.
I be wanting to show y'all the whole video, but every time I do that, YouTube cut my stream. So I just try to every now and then I might just drop in and show y'all the picture too, but I ain't gonna be holding this phone all night.
Who revealed himself as Vahumana, meaning good purpose, and taught him about Ahura Mazda, the wise spirit, and 5 other radiant figures called Kumaras. Now, this is very interesting, as Kumara was also a term or title applied to Melchizedek. Ahura Mazda is portrayed riding in a winged ring called the Faravar. In present-day Zoroastrianism, the Faravar is said to be a reminder of one's purpose or mission in life, which is to live in such a way that the soul progresses towards Fresha Kareti, or perfect union with Ahura Mazda. Mani was also believed to be the reincarnation of Lao Tzu, the Taoist master and ascension keeper who lived around 500 BC during the time when the ascension teachings were in full flow in Babylon. In this life, he would become the Buddha of light. It was Lao Tzu who taught
Jay Phillips, where you from?
Practice of heavenly ascension. In Taoist belief, the ability to ascend to heaven, ideally in broad daylight, accompanied by one's household, demonstrated one's achievement of the most exalted state of transcendence in Shen. Shen is very close to Sion and Esen or Essene. It's actually a Chinese word for an enlightened person, translatable in English as spiritually immortal, transcendent, superhuman, celestial being. Wow. Obviously, Lao Tzu is another ascension keeper, and we can further connect him to the Essenes, not just by the phonetic similarity of his title, Shen and Ascend. The oldest recorded Shen character has a rise up, ascend phonetic, supposedly because immortals could ascend into the heavens. According to the Digital Dictionary of Buddhism, Chinese Shen can also mean Sanskrit Rishi, an inspired sage in the Vedas. Remember, the Essenes taught the secrets of Raz, or the veil, and as we have seen, Raz is also rooted in Rishi. So here is another important tie-in between the Essenes and Lao Tzu. The Essenes and Mani would agree with Lao Tzu when he described the perfect man as one who could ascend to the loftiest height without fear, enter water and not get wet, or enter fire and not get burned. In fact, Taoism's perfect man governs his inner self and embraces his destiny. The wholeness and completion, perfection that we seek to attain is actually a wholeness and a oneness which we already have. We simply need to get in touch with that wavelength, taught the Manichaeans. The takeaway here is that in Taoist tradition, Lao Tzu would reincarnate among the non-Chinese people in order to teach ascension and to spread universal enlightenment. Mani was claimed to be the latest incarnation of Lao Tzu, the new illuminator. And in one of his writings, the Book of King Shapur, Mani tells that the apostles of God have always been here, bringing wisdom. Buddha was one of them. So is Zoroaster. So is Jesus. Mani believed he was the latest to receive the transmission and join the company of all these ascension keepers. So this was early Christianity. The Christ was a cosmic being, the great celestial being of the Essenes who reincarnated at different times and even inhabited the body of Jesus. But by the 4th century, Orthodox or traditional Christianity had forgotten this or covered it up. Mani's writings focus on a meeting with an angel at a column of glory, and every Manichaean expected to meet an angel clad in a white robe at the moment of death. The wise guide would then take us into the afterlife. Mani claimed to have met his angel while still living. He not only met this being, but Mani merged with him or became one with this holy entity. Mani referred to this angel as his light self or his twin. And from the moment he met this twin, Mani was no longer human. He bridged the worlds. He was an apostle of light, a perfected one. In the Mani Codex, Mani tells how the angel came to him like a flash of lightning. It was sent by the great fathers, it said, and came to reveal great secrets and hidden things to Mani so that he could reveal them to the world. This is when Mani became an ascension keeper. Above all, the angel of light sought for Mani to communicate secrets about the greatness of humanity and our potential for transformation. The greatness of man is not visible, he said, but lies in secret. Because of this, he is lord over the beasts which are stronger and greater than he by the standard of the visible and the hidden. This is also written in the Gospel of Philip. The angel of light told Mani that we are lost sparks of divinity, lost and wandering in an alien world. And until we awaken our light self, we cannot know our true greatness. But our true nature, our true self, is a cosmic being, clothed with the elements,
Cosmic
as
conscious.
with a garment.
Christ conscious.
It is a being of light, and it still exists. Our goal is to activate our angelic light self and to be transformed by this experience. We do this by gaining knowledge of our true nature. And
that's what the Bible means when it says, be ye transformed by what? The renewing of your mind.
Self will then take over from there. As with many Gnostic traditions, the Manichaeans taught that we do not seek our angelic light self solely for our own benefit. We seek it as a way to heal all, to resurrect all. Men and women were among the elect, as they were called, who took on the task of bringing in the light.
See, back then they were called the elect. Now we call the chosen ones.
Implored us to be constantly aware of our cosmic situation, that we are light beings from a divine realm who have fallen into matter, and that what we do in this realm matters. Because they believed that if we make ourselves slaves to earth life and all its pleasures, we're sacrificing our true self. For this reason, they saw earthly things as a means to an end rather than the end goal itself. Mani's ideas about ascension show that he knew various works from the Gnostic tradition, especially the Apocryphon or secret book of John, written around 180 AD and found in the library at Nag Hammadi, Egypt. The secret book of John is a collection of secret teachings. It was referred to by Irenaeus, an early official church father, as heretical and was lost until 1945. It describes the resurrected and ascended Jesus appearing and giving secret knowledge, or gnosis, to the Apostle John. The author describes this having occurred after Jesus, quote, has gone back to the place from which he came. This book is reputed to bear this revelation. The author John is immediately specified as John, the brother of James, who are the sons of Zebedee. Many Christians in the 2nd century hope to receive a transcendent personal revelation, such as Paul was able to report to the church at Corinth, or that John experienced on the Isle of Patmos, which inspired his book of Revelation. As the book of Acts narrates what happened after the time Jesus ascended to heaven, so the Apocryphon of John begins at the same point, but relates how Christ appeared to John. The remainder of the book is a vision of spiritual realms and of the prior history of spiritual humanity. This text represents the Gnostics' highest desire to encounter the beaming Jesus. And in the Apocryphon of John narrative, John was at the temple in Jerusalem when he's confronted by a Pharisee named Arminius. Like his brethren, Arminius was skeptical of John the Baptist and his cousin Jesus. He wants to know, where is Jesus? And John tells him that after his resurrection, Jesus has returned. He's ascended to the place from which he came. He has ascended. Arminius responds by accusing Jesus of misleading, lying, and turning John and others away from the ancestral traditions. Ascension to these guys is heretical, remember. The encounter spins John into a whirlwind of questions. He leaves the Temple of Solomon and soon finds himself in deep contemplation on a mountaintop. Who was Jesus anyway? And what was Jesus? These questions swirl in his mind. Why was he here? And who sent him? And where did he go? And what did he mean by all this talk about eternal life? All John learned from Jesus is that he came from the imperishable realm. While John was contemplating these questions, suddenly the heavens opened and the whole of creation shone with a light from above, and the world quaked. A being appeared in the light. At first, it looked like a small child. Then it morphed into an older man. It morphed again, becoming like a young man, just like in the Revelation of the Magi. Then the being in the light spoke to John, saying, John, why doubt? Why be afraid?
That's what they mean
Don't
by
you know
doubting,
this, isn't it?
John.
Be not afraid. I am with you always. This phrase, I am with you always, is the last sentence of Matthew 28:20,
That's right.
spoken
He
by
is
the
with us
risen
always.
Jesus to the disciples. Then,
the kingdom
Jesus
of heaven is
identifies
within.
himself as the Father, Mother, and the Son, and also as the incorruptible purity. Then he tells John, I have come to teach you about what is, and what was, and what will be. In other words, Jesus is going to tell him about the past, the present, and the future. And Jesus does so in order for John to understand, as Jesus says, the invisible world, and the world that is visible, and the immovable race of perfect humanity. Next, Jesus encourages John to lift up his face, listen, and understand what he is saying, and to proclaim it to all your kindred spirits, those, says Jesus, who are from the immovable race of perfect human. Jesus then tells John that understanding these concepts will be difficult for those who are not part of this perfected race. And Christ's mysteries belong to this race, he says. He also tells John he encouraged Adam and Eve to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Of course, the traditional church assigns this role to the serpent of Eden. As we can see, the Gnostics had a different and even more detailed version of our ascension than the traditional church. More revelations about the Gnostics are to come. And what we have learned here is that after the Essene revelation, the Essene mission continued. This is what they hinted to us in the Dead Sea Scrolls, that while they might have disappeared from the scene around 68 AD, they were going to come back again and again until the revelation was complete and the mission was complete. My research reveals that Mani was very much like you and I. He was a researcher. He got out of the box and he looked at the Egyptian, the Iranian, the early Christian, and any tradition that he could find that related to the concepts of ascension. And he found a new way to put it all together and inspired a whole generation. The Gnostics picked up on this revelation and continued to run with it, assuring humanity that our transformation was underway and that it was only a matter of time before all of us would be able to fully embrace these teachings and once and for all unite heaven and earth.
Okay. The lost secret of immortality.
To incorruptible gold, it would certainly be able to transfer. To enter the Tao and experience enlightenment is to answer the question, what was your original face before your mother and father were born? What is immortality? Is the promise of everlasting life merely an illusion created to shield you from the truth about death? Or is there proof that immortality is real? What secrets are hidden in spiritual traditions about life after death? You can achieve the ultimate dream. You can unlock the secret to who you really are. You can open the hidden door to discover the genius within you. You can achieve enlightenment and realize your ultimate potential. For thousands of years, the spiritual quest of the human race has been to discover the true self, the eternal light of the Kundalini. At last, from the wisdom of enlightened teachers, you will discover your true nature. which is far more powerful than you have ever imagined. You will experience total inner illumination.
You still in here, Jay Phillips?
The ordinary reality, everyday stuff that we go through, good, bad, or different, right, is of extreme value. It's like gold. It is jewels, right? But only through spiritual practice do you develop the sensitivity, which is actually innate. So it's more like bringing out the sensitivity.
That's what the word when they talk about the philosopher's stone, talk about turning, metal into gold. That's what they're really talking about. Alchemy, the transformation.
To know that this moment is the only moment you're going to get, and it's going to be wide open, luminous, and blissful.
You have the ability to master spiritual alchemy and achieve enlightenment.
I can't make it up.
Early historical records show that man has searched almost endlessly for the secret of immortality. The first people who studied the natural world around them became known as alchemists. They experimented with animals, plants, and minerals. Their work and observations eventually led to the creation of chemistry, physics, and medicine. Eastern alchemists searched for immortality through the study of meditation, yoga, and the martial arts. They believed immortality could be achieved by recreating conception within their own bodies through diligent practice. Many Western alchemists believed there was a secret formula that could turn base metals into gold. This philosopher's stone was also thought to be an elixir of immortality that could rejuvenate the body. They believed if it could turn a corruptible metal to incorruptible gold, it would certainly be able to transform human beings from mortals to immortals. The goal of the early alchemists was described in Latin as finding the secret method to unite the soul, called the anima, with the spiritus or spirit within the corpus or physical body. This is believed to represent the original Trinity, which underlies Christianity, Buddhism, Taoism, and many other ancient alchemical sciences. Every human being has the potential to fully master spiritual alchemy.
Hold on, let me stop it for a second here. The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light.
Because if you only learn the practice that gives you enlightenment, how are you going to enlighten other people who might be different from you, right?
The Kundalini is the enlightened energy within you,
Right,
waiting to be awakened.
exactly. And the Kundalini ain't nothing but that's what the snake represent. They, bad mouth the snake, but the snake really is representative of God or Mother Gaia because it crawls on its belly next to what?
The search that
The
spanned
ground.
the centuries and covered the earth eventually centered around inner alchemy and the attainment of immortality through the activation of a hidden power known as Kundalini. Kundalini is a dormant, enlightened energy which resides within the lower torso of the human body and is activated through yogic practice.
And one of the best ways to activate it is through sex.
Or meditation, and results in enlightenment, inner illumination, and immortality. Many of the legendary figures of antiquity, including Buddha and Jesus, were successful spiritual alchemists who believed in the spark of light within human beings. Jesus confirmed this when he said, "The kingdom of God is within you."
That's right.
When Buddha spoke of the middle path to achieve nirvana, he may have been describing the central channel of the body through which the Kundalini energy travels. China, India, and Tibet are all civilizations which are based on the complete evolution of consciousness being achieved through a Kundalini activation. A Kundalini activation, particularly if achieved through the practice of sexual yoga,
see what I told
represented
you? I just
the
said
ultimate
that.
threat
I can't
to
make
the
this shit
religious
up.
establishment
I can't make it up.
because it enabled the
Because I
human
had
being
one
to
through
achieve
6. That's how I know.
enlightenment, which freed that person from the control of the religious authority of the time. The Philosopher's Stone was linked with magic and with early religions, and was greatly feared by the church because it linked human sexuality or sexual yoga with higher consciousness or enlightenment. The basic theory of the Philosopher's Stone is in the process of being rediscovered by science because it represents the reality of the ability of the individual to unite the energy of the body with the energy of the universe. In the Hermetic tradition of alchemy, this was called squaring the circle.
People have striven for centuries to find out about how to get back to their primordial energy. Some people have, of course, clicked into those states almost spontaneously, and have been astonished at what's possible, and then have tried to find ways to get us all, or at least some disciples, to move into those patterns of energy, those patterns of the body-mind complex that are, for most people, even hard to conceive of.
There are descriptions of the power of the Kundalini experience in the esoteric teachings of China, India, Tibet, Egypt, Africa, and the Americas. The Kundalini has been described in the Bible as the solar principle in man, and is the basis of the secret teachings of Gnostic Christianity, the Kabbalah, and the Hermetic tradition of alchemy. In the I Ching, the Book of Changes,
Yin and
the
Yang.
oldest sacred text of China, it is called the original spirit. In the East, the Philosopher's Stone or Buddhahood is a complete Kundalini activation, in which the meditator sees a golden embryonic version of himself at the time of enlightenment. This genetic blueprint, which is created at the time of a person's conception, is dormant in the lower torso until it is fully awakened by activating the original chi. When you successfully cultivate the original chi of your body and fully open the energy meridians, your own chi unites with the chi of the universe. Can you hold the body and spirit as one? Concentrating your chi and becoming pliant, can you become like a newborn baby? Clearing your mind and contemplating the profound, can you remain unknown? In understanding all things, and you remain detached. In Indian yoga scriptures, the Kundalini was illustrated as a golden serpent coiled within the body to describe the potential power of its energy and awakening. And the serpent swallowing its tail is the oldest known symbol of alchemical knowledge. You have the potential to achieve Buddhahood. You can become enlightened. You can discover your true power if you fully open the energy meridians of the body. When you see your original face, when you fully activate the Kundalini within your body, this has been described as union with God in all the theistic traditions. True success in activating the Kundalini is dependent on finding the secret of the real spiritual gold within yourself through meditation and other mental and physical practices. Kundalini yoga theory is based on the concept that there is a tremendous reservoir of stored energy within the lower torso of the body. When this energy is fully activated and raised to the top of the head, it results in enlightenment or immortality, and this is the most ancient secret of yoga. What many alchemists throughout the world have called the legendary golden elixir is actually the fully activated starting point of the body. In its most complete form, it is the realization of Buddhahood, or the attainment of immortality, which results in permanent deathless consciousness. It is this recreation of conception that has the potential to transform a normal person into a fully enlightened being that has transcended birth, death, space, and time. Buddha succeeded in awakening the Kundalini energy within himself. At that moment, he saw his original face dissolve into emptiness. From this golden vision, he created the basic philosophy of spiritual freedom that has benefited humanity throughout the world for thousands of years. The word Buddha means awake. When asked, "Are you a man or a god?" the Buddha is said to have replied, "I am awake." The ancient Chinese medical system describes the starting point of the body as a spark of light from the beginning of time. It is midway between your navel and your spine. It exists within everyone and is created at the time of conception. This point of light has been described as the face of God, and alchemists called it the prima materia, the first matter.
Milarepa has a great line in one of his teachings. Milarepa was this Tibetan master that I wrote my doctoral dissertation about. He appeared to me once, too, by the way, in a dream. He says, the best realization of openness is right in the center of your body, in the avaduti, in the central channel, all right? This means that all of those energies of the bindus, the elements of consciousness moving through your body, should move into that open space. And what seems to be a confined place around the heart chakra is actually the place where the whole universe opens out, right? To realization, to enlightenment. So all of the things that we talk about, the bindus, the channels, the drops, all of that kind of stuff, these esoteric teachings about the subtle body, you might say our accompanying subtle body that goes with this gross material body, working with those energies allows you to loosen up the entire physical, electronic, chemical and mental aspects of the human person. This is no joke. How does a Milarepa become the model of a civilization? And of course, what we've been talking about here is the fully awakened, enlightened, the fully realized Buddha is the model. And so a person like Milarepa, who did become a fully awakened, enlightened Buddha, right, was totally available to people and animals and phenomena throughout the universe. That is the ideal. That is the archetype. That is the model for whatever you're doing. So that whatever you're doing, even if it is building a principality, as in fact Milarepa's guru, Marpa, did. He built himself a principality. But while he was building the principality, he developed himself as a Buddha as well. And he handed on to Milarepa, who in a different form, in the form of a hermit, in the form of an ascetic, also manifested the same Buddha nature. All right? So that suddenly becomes the basis out of which you can weave an entire civilization. All right? And that is a thing that I think we're missing. We're missing the civilization that emerges out of the cave where a person goes to meditate, out of the hermitage where a person discovers the fullness of being itself through spiritual practice. What's the natural state? The natural state is this complete openness so that your mind and body are completely open to something much greater than what we are, all right? And yet it's not separate from what we are. It's one of those things that goes beyond words, but once you've seen it and once you've touched human beings who live that all the time, you'll never forget it.
Now y'all see how Christianity twisted that thing. Can y'all put it together? How what the serpent in the Garden of Eden and all that mean? They were just talking about sex, basically. That's all they was talking about. That's what it was. They want you to sustain from sex. They want to control your every move. That's what Christianity is. That's what religion is. Control.
Am I a man dreaming I am a butterfly? Or am I a butterfly dreaming I am a man? One of the most ancient Tibetan spiritual practices is called Dream Yoga. Dream Yoga is known to be one of the primary practices of the legendary 6 yogas of Naropa. Imagine, as you are watching right now, that you are actually dreaming. What is it that makes you think that you are awake right now? How can you be certain if you are dreaming or if you are awake? What if you learn to control your own dreams? You can do this with a practice of Dream Yoga, an ancient method used by Mahasiddhas and immortals. Dreams can be so powerful that they can change the world. Artists, writers, scientists, and inventors have all been inspired by dreams. Solutions to complex problems have been made clear within dreams. Dreams also occur outside of 3-dimensional space and time and can reveal the future. Padmasambhava in 8th century Tibet described a dream where he saw a future time in which the iron bird flies and horses run on wheels, and the Tibetan people were scattered around the earth, and the Dharma came to the land of the red man. He was clearly seeing the world as it became in the 20th century. Many of the great scientific discoveries are the result of parallel probable versions of the scientists communicating within dreams according to the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. As you are watching right now, there are multiple parallel, probable, and alternate versions of yourself doing the same thing simultaneously in multiple dimensions. To control the dreams while you are dreaming enables you to access creative information that can completely transform your experience of reality. And to have what is known as a lucid dream is to understand your waking life is also a part of your personal dreamscape. During the course of the day, it is necessary to ask yourself repeatedly, is this a dream? To discover your true self while in a lucid dream, go to a mirror and embrace the image of yourself that you see there.
What's up, Lulu? How about y'all like, share, subscribe, all right?
Lucid dreaming is a metaphor for enlightenment. To realize you are dreaming while you are dreaming represents the ability of each human being to realize that their own perception is dreamlike, and to achieve greater and greater levels of awakening through their own spiritual practices. One of the primary ways of realizing that you are dreaming while you are dreaming is to recognize an incongruity within the dream. To realize that you are flying, you are walking on water, that because you are walking through a wall, that this means that this is a dream because you could not possibly be doing this in three-dimensional reality. The goal of dream yoga is to discover who you really are. So to see a golden embryonic version of yourself within your dreams through a complete Kundalini activation represents complete self-discovery and ultimate enlightenment.
Now, there are certain prayers and practices also that the Tibetans give for how to position your body when you sleep so that the channel's in the proper position, so that you're breathing properly. Also, they give a number of prayers that can be said. And I say one of these prayers from time to time about being able to see dreams as lucid and also to recognize the awake state as dreamlike in some ways, because this way you see through, right? You see through the patterns of energy, right? Doesn't mean that they're not there. It means that you see through them. You see their qualities and the woven quality of all phenomena.
It is the dream of enlightenment which makes achieving immortality possible. The deepest level of our dreams has always been enlightenment.
That's a great blessing. And these are the kinds of things that the lamas, the tradition of dream yoga really is a wonderful gift, because then you can use your nocturnal experience as part of your practice. And it goes right along with what I was saying about everything being an oblation, everything being an offering. Because if you waste, your valuable sleep time, right, you're losing several hours of practice every day. But if you turn sleep into a practice, then you're practicing all the time. And so your body at all times is engaged in some kind of spiritual activity. A pretty good thing.
To know others is wisdom. but to master oneself is enlightenment. Those who conquer others require great strength, but to conquer oneself requires true power. You can enter the Tao through the true mastery of martial arts. The traditional goal of higher martial arts in China has always been to enter the Tao, which is the achievement of enlightenment, seeing your original face, or successfully cultivating the spiritual embryo which transforms you into an immortal. So traditionally, the greatest martial artists reach this ultimate level, in which you unite the energy of the body with the energy of the Tao and actually become a living Buddha. The secret of martial arts is a Kundalini activation, which results in the enlightened warrior seeing his original face and achieving inner illumination. The master martial artist actually unites the microcosm of the body with the macrocosm of the universe, and in doing so discovers the holographic nature of reality. This process unites the mind of the individual with a universal mind.
Kind of makes you wonder, did they kill Bruce Lee on purpose, doesn't it?
Bodhidharma, the founder of Zen Buddhism, is the most well-known and respected Buddhist teacher in East Asia. In the 5th century, he traveled from India to China to teach the monks of the Shaolin Temple. It was there that he created Shaolin martial arts, a method of self-defense which included meditation and enlightenment. Bodhidharma taught there was no enlightenment outside of the mind, and that the mind is enlightenment itself. Enlightenment is not just an awakening of the mind, it is a physical process as well. Many of the greatest teachers of wisdom have activated the original mind using the source energy of their bodies. This experience is called seeing your original face or returning the original spirit to void. The Tao is based on the unity of the essential triad of heaven, earth, and humanity. The ideal of the Shaolin Temple is to enter the way by mastering meditation and Qi cultivation as well as martial arts. The creation of Tai Chi is based on the 1,000-year-old story in which the founder, Shang Sanfeng, observed an epic battle between a crane and a snake. He watched intently as the bird fiercely attacked the snake again and again. With each attempt of the bird to kill the snake, the serpent's agility, yielding and flowing movements enabled it to survive. The crane used its speed and mobility to avoid the snake's counterattacks and also remained unharmed. Shang Sanfeng is also said to have had a dream the following night in which he was visited by the legendary god of war, Guan Ti. Guan Ti taught him the methods of celestial martial arts and the alchemical secret of the golden embryo. Shan Sanfang combined these lessons with a style of fighting based on the movements he observed of the crane and the snake. This method relies upon internal power, or qi, and is based on the principle that yielding overcomes aggression and softness overpowers hardness. Shan Sanfang called it Tai Chi Chuan, or the Supreme Ultimate Fist. The highest level of martial arts is based on the enlightened warrior seeing his original face and successfully cultivating the spiritual embryo. This has the potential of transforming an individual into an immortal or a living Buddha. Many of the greatest Chinese martial artists actually achieved this level of enlightenment and used their incredible skills and power to protect and benefit their people. A major aspect of Chinese martial arts is the transformation of your three inner treasures, Jing, Qi, and Shen, within the body. Often translated as reproductive energy, vital bodily energy, and mind and spirit, they are the most important aspect of internal power development. Their complete refinement results in the spiritual embryo and immortality, a permanent state of enlightened consciousness that is not limited by the physical body and even exists after death. Complete mastery of the sword has always been a metaphor for enlightenment. The true sword represents the enlightened mind, and the enlightened mind
begin the descent down the left side of the wheel. This descent is about learning how to flow, balanced with inward flow. And the magician helps us to learn how to draw spirit energy down for creation into the external world, while the high priestess helps us on a subtle plane level to connect inwardly with spirit in order to evolve our subtle body and our consciousness. Recall the mandala wheel of the 231 gates with the tarot keys placed around it. The key 0, or the Fool, is placed at the top of the wheel with Aleph, and as the wheel now rotates clockwise to keys 1 and 2, we begin the descent down the left side of the wheel. This descent is about learning how to master the physical plane. The first 7 keys also relate to various stages of preparation for the great work, and these form the early lessons of this journey that teach us about the archetypal principles. As we take our next step on the hero's journey, we meet the magician. Now, why does the magician come next? Well, this represents the first step of that limitless light that's depicted as the Fool, which now takes its step into the journey towards self-actualization. That's why, as an archetype, the magician represents the wizards, the magi, and the wise men who have the power to make things happen and to create by their will. Most people today don't seem to understand the proper use of this word magic. That's largely because it's been given a bad reputation from both science and religion. So let's clarify this term here. What does the original use of the word magic really mean? Well, first of all, we spell magic with a K to indicate that we're talking about real magic here, as opposed to trickery or stage magic. The K stands for having the right keys to perform real magic. And some of these keys are depicted in the tarot card of the magician. So here's a definition to write down. Magic means to change nothing into something or something into something else. In other words, it's the process of creation and transformation. One of the rules for the magician states that the magician must bring about a successful combination of intense desire and concentration with an appropriate object. He masters this art and science of focusing his mind and will towards the accomplishment of his desires. And yes, I did just say science. In ancient Egypt, the word magic meant the same as what we mean by science today. In the old days, the magicians were the priests. They were the ones with the knowledge, and they preserved and taught this knowledge to others. A great example of this archetype is Hermes Trismegistus, the sage priest magician whose legacy and teachings have lasted for thousands of years through the Western mystery school tradition. This path is about the quest to understand and manifest hidden wisdom. And it's a path that has produced many mystical philosophers like Socrates and Plato and Pythagoras, just to name a few. Now let's take a look at the numerology for a moment. The Fool was number 0, which makes the Magician number 1. So number 1 is the beginning of a cycle. It's where creation begins, and it's quite dynamic. It represents the initiation of all creative processes. It's the seed or divine spark of creation, where all new ideas come from. And this number 1 is full of authority, power, and leadership. Now, as we look at the imagery of the card of the magician, we see that this key also depicts this essence of concentration. Notice his posture. His right hand is up holding a double terminated wand, while his left hand is pointing down. And with this right hand, he's actively calling in the energy from above through the wand to be directed into creation. That cosmic force then passes through him and through his heart in particular, and then it's directed into the realms below to be manifested. His left hand acts as a transparent channel for that power. The magician recognizes that he's just a conduit. He's receptive to the powers from above, he's actively calling them in, and then he's concentrating them towards the object of his focus. And this act of concentration is shown by his finger pointing directly at what he wants to focus it towards. It's precisely directed towards what he wants to create. But at the same time, he must remain transparent so that the full amount of light and power can flow through him. Meaning he has to have this ability to have mastered himself enough to not block that flow of light in any way. He thus works in harmony with the universe using this as above, so below principle. Another way that this is indicated is with the sideways figure 8 that's over his head. We call this the lemniscate, or the infinity sign, and it symbolizes a balance point that harmonizes the opposites. The active masculine and the receptive feminine principles must work together. And this is true for all creative work, even the creation of the cosmos. Now, the primary color around the magician is also bright yellow, very similar to the Fool, and it again represents the element of air as well as that radiant light of the spirit. Now, in the Universal Weight Tarot deck, he is also surrounded by this aura of white light, indicating that his power comes from a divine source. And the magician wears 2 robes. His white robe is the inner robe, and it represents purity, truth, and wisdom of the spirit, while his outer robe is red, and it represents passion and desire and active use of will. Notice also that he has a belt around him, and this belt is a serpent that bites its own tail, also known as the Ouroboros. And this is symbolic of that eternal cycle of transformation and the tradition of alchemy. The magician, as he's doing his work, is in a garden. And this garden offers him a private and sacred space in which to perform his magic. Now, the garden is something that we must cultivate. It's the ground of our being that we must purposely till and fertilize. We have to pull the weeds out of it, and we have to plant the seeds within it. And it's something we must consciously and actively tend to in order for it to thrive and be beautiful. Well, this garden represents our life, and the soil in which it grows is our subconscious mind. The flowers of this garden are red roses and white lilies. The red roses represent desire, the desire to create what we want and to live a fulfilled life that's aligned with our highest good. The roses represent the kinds of things that we want to experience with our five senses. But the white lilies represent knowledge. This is more of an abstract kind of knowledge. It's about grasping hidden truths and the higher principles or laws of the universe. So desire and the quest for knowledge are the two things that drive the magician in his work. In front of the magician, we see a table or an altar, and this represents the field of his attention. The altar also has sacred tools and symbols upon it that represent what he wants that energy to be flowing through into the world. Ultimately, he wants everything in this energy to be manifested in the three-dimensional.
As above, so below. As within, so without. This is your girl, Every Goddess, up in the call of the night because I'm kind of tired, y'all. And don't nobody ever want to come in here and say nothing in the chat. They just want to listen in and you won't hit the like button or nothing. Y'all better get right. Because if you was right, you'll do the right thing.